So TikTok, bear with me. I just started this stream for the YouTube and Facebook. YouTube and Facebook family, I have been live already for about 7 minutes on TikTok because, I'm doing this board myself, right? When I push the live button on StreamYard, you have to push it twice. And so since I'm so concerned about TikTok because I'm new to it and I don't, really understand it, I only pushed it once. So I thought I was live on YouTube and Facebook, and I was not. So shalom, my Facebook and YouTube family. I'm here. This is Office Hours with Sharon, the debut of Office Hours with Sharon, where we talk about mental health. And you ask me questions about mental health, relationships, addiction, trauma, all those sorts of things, which is in my area of expertise. I'm a licensed professional counselor in private practice. And so that is what I do for a living. So this is an opportunity for you all to ask me questions and see if I can answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'll bring someone on who can at a later date, or I'll research out the answer and get that for you. And also, too, we can talk about our faith in Jesus Christ, and about the faith walk. And I'll share with you what I know about that and my personal experience about that, and what I know has helped me and others to walk out this life in faith through Jesus Christ. So if you have any questions regarding any of the things I just talked about, put it in the chat and we can begin a conversation. I'm going to generally talk about, unless you have questions, mental health today and how it affects everything that we do in life. Let me look at now TikTok. When I'm looking at you, I'm moving closer because the writing is so small on TikTok, and you see I have glasses on, so I want to be able to see if you're asking me a question, and I don't see any questions. I just think I see invites. So, okay, but just bear with me when I put my face closer to the screen. Facebook and YouTube, they already know these eyes. We've been doing this together for a minute. So when we talk about mental health, like I said, it goes into every single thing that we do. Our mind. We can't do anything without our mind. We can't do anything without our emotions getting involved, whether we realize it or not. We are experiencing our emotions 24/7, 365, all day, every day, whether we acknowledge it or not, and whether we even know what we're actually feeling or not. But there's something there. And because of the different ways we are raised and whatever generation that we were raised in, oftentimes we're taught to deny how we feel, to get over it, so to speak. And so therefore we struggle with identifying how we feel because we've been taught to suppress how we felt in our younger formative years growing up, because that's a generational issue, because that's how older generations were raised, and therefore they raised their kids that way, and so on and so forth. But now we're in the age where we're raising children to be aware of their feelings, and that it's okay to experience their emotions and how they feel and to express it. And that is a good thing. But what we have to do with our young people today is, as we are allowing them to express how they feel, help them to be respectful in how they share how they feel. Because they can say to a parent, I feel, such and such a way, because this is what, mom, you did to me, and this is how I felt. So they can say it in a respectful manner, or they can say it in a disrespectful manner about sharing how they feel. So it's not much what it is that they're sharing, it's how they're sharing it that becomes the issue. So it's the how and not the what. So remember, whatever you say, remember it's how you say it is how the other person is going to receive it. So if you say it in a ratchet way, they're going to receive it in a ratchet way. If you say it in a respectful way, they'll receive it more than likely in a respectful way. Now, that doesn't mean that they're still not going to feel some type of way about it and even not respond in kind. If a person is going to be a jerk, they're going to be a jerk. But that still doesn't mean that you didn't do the right thing by how you expressed what it is that you said. So no blood is on your hands. You did the right thing. That person just wasn't ready to hear the truth about themselves or about how they impacted you in that moment. But that's not your issue. That's their issue to grapple with. Don't carry other people's stuff. Let's be clear of what my stuff is and what your stuff is And this way, it cuts down on the stress that we have in our relationships and that we carry in our bodies. Oftentimes, we're carrying around other people's stuff because we've latched on to something that they've said, and now we're holding on to it. And now we're walking away feeling guilty, feeling sad, feeling stressed, all these different ways that we can feel. And it's not even our stuff. We've just taken it on like it's ours. And now it's causing us a whole bunch of distress. So as you're going through life, discern, wait a minute, was that their stuff or is it my stuff? And if it's not yours, don't take it on. Allow that person to sit with their stuff and grapple with it however they choose and let them deal with it. It's okay. A prime example, when you say no to someone and they're expecting you to say yes or to agree with them to do whatever it is that they want to do. I'm not talking about anything, evil or anything like that, but sometimes you just say no. But they want you to agree with them and say yes to do whatever it is they want you to do. And so on some level, they can't handle your no. But that's okay. No is a complete sentence in and of itself. You don't need to give an explanation for your no. I mean, you can, but it's not necessary, right? And then they'll try to convince you to do it or try to guilt you into doing whatever it is they want you to do. And so now you're taking on because I feel guilty. Oh, I should do it. You don't have to feel guilty. Your time is just as precious as their time. And if you can't do it, it's okay to say no. Even if you want to kick your feet up and relax because you deserve it, you can say no, and it's okay, and allow them to go through what they're going to go through in their feelings because you said no. Your no is not your issue. How they handle it, it's their issue. Hopefully they'll be like, oh, that's cool. I get it. Appreciate you considering it. And you know what? Have a good day, however it goes. And then we move on with someone who's not going to handle it that way and hold a grudge. The grudge is for them. Don't feel bad about you saying no, because they're surely not feeling bad when they say no to you. So just wanted to put that little tidbit out there right up front. And also, too, if you see me looking back and forth, I have two cameras going on, one for Facebook and YouTube from StreamYard and the other one from TikTok. I haven't figured out how to integrate TikTok into the StreamYard feed yet, but I will. But until then, I got two cameras going on, so I'm darting back and forth. So if you have any questions regarding mental health, relationships, addiction, behavioral health, trauma, put your questions in the chat, or if you have comments in the chat about any of these things regarding what I'm speaking about tonight. Again, this is Office Hours with Sharon. I am a licensed professional counselor. This is my field of expertise, dealing with the mind, dealing with emotions, and dealing with behaviors and relationships. So this is the space where we're going to come and talk about these things and get some answers so we can, information is power, because when hopefully you know better, you can do better. And so now we all have so many questions about what's going on and how what's going on in the world and how it's affecting people and how it's affecting the mind and emotions. We're living in very difficult times and even more difficult times to come. And it's affecting us. And so many people have questions. So it's one of the reasons why I've started this show now, because I've heard from so many people with so many questions, and this is a way to get information to the masses. So share your questions, share your comments, share your examples. If you have any examples of specific things that you might want to talk about, my friend did this and this is what happened. And so let's talk about that. Whatever it is that you care to share regarding any particular experiences that you may have had or are having, because it could be present, and you want information about that, and maybe even how to proceed forward with something that you have going on. Feel free to share it in the chat. Netta says, hello, ladies. It's just me tonight, Netta, just Sharon. Good to see you on tonight, Netta. Netta is watching from Facebook. So continue. Let's see. Let me look in the TikTok. Is that okay? Just says join. I think I can see a little bit. I hope I'm not missing anyone. But So when we are communicating, when we are interacting with other people via communication, which is what we do every day. We were created to be relational, right? No man is an island. And so we have to communicate. And there's three forms of communication. Passive was on one end of the continuum, and aggressive is on the other end of the continuum, and assertive is in the middle. And assertive is where we should all strive to be. And I would like to throw in, a fourth category for those who are passive aggressive. They put the two together, and I'm sure many of us, can recall interacting with a person who communicates in a passive aggressive way. So I add that fourth category in for those folks. But we all should strive to be an assertive communicator. So let me just describe to you the difference in brief, the difference between the three. And this speaks to our mental health. The type of communicator that we are, it speaks to our mental health. And so if you're a passive communicator, your voice has been stifled somewhere in your life. Your voice has been, say, taken away. Or you gave your voice away somewhere, and typically it starts in childhood. Whether you weren't listened to, you were overtalked, your opinion never mattered, it was discarded, and so at some point you just decided my opinion doesn't matter anyway. Nobody listens to me, so you stop talking. Now, don't mean totally stop talking, but you just kind of fell in line with what others were saying and doing. So as you continued through life and going through school and social relationships, friendships, in your group of friends, typically you may not have offered a suggestion for when it's like, hey, let's do this. You fell in line with whatever they wanted to do, even though you may not have wanted to do it. Or if they say, hey, what movie do you want to see? You fell in line with whatever movie they wanted to see and pretty much didn't make a suggestion. Or if you did and others said something else, you went along with the others. So a passive communicator goes along with what others want to do, go along with the crowd, even if that's really not what they want to do. But again, their voice has been stifled somewhere along the line, and they've carried that with them through, and we all do, we carry that with them with us throughout life, right? And so when a passive communicator, and here's the switch for a passive communicator. A passive communicator takes, and takes, because you figure if you're not speaking up for yourself, you're constantly taking from others, and it's piling on and piling on, and those emotions are getting stuffed. Because again, it's not like you're really a passive communicator really agrees with everything. They're just going along to get along, and so they're stuffing and they're suppressing their emotions. And so one day someone will say or do something, and it doesn't have to even be anything major, but because the passive communicator has stuffed their emotions and their thoughts and not shared what they truly feel, they will explode and go to the other end of the continuum and become an aggressive communicator in that moment. And after they have their moment of explosion, then they go back to being their passive communicating style, for the next time, until the next time they have an aggressive explosion, right? And so now we go to the aggressive communicator. The aggressive communicator, and typically probably became an aggressive communicator in childhood based on family dynamics, etc. The aggressive communicator is direct and honest with what their view of honesty is. But the difference between an aggressive communicator and an assertive communicator, because an assertive communicator is direct and honest as well, but the aggressive communicator doesn't care about how the other person feels when they say what they say. So remember earlier, a few minutes ago, I said it's how you say a thing, not what you say. Well, the aggressive communicator doesn't care about the how. They will use profanity. They will use demeaning terms. They will basically lay you out, cuss you out, whatever it is, call you out of your name and say all of these things. And they may be saying things outside of the demeaning terms, but they may be saying things that are correct factually about, say, what you may have done. But it's laden, and it's with, maliciousness, and it just comes out. It's mean, it's like the Mean Girls. It's got a mean spirit to it. Right. And so that's the aggressive communicator. They don't care about the how. I'm just saying what I said, and you have to deal with it. And, I'm sure we all You can think of people who we may know who are passive communicators and who are aggressive communicators. So now we move to the assertive communicator, which is where we should all strive to be if we're not already there. The assertive communicator is direct. The assertive communicator is honest. The assertive communicator does care about how the other person feels. And so, because of that, they are mindful of how they say what they say, because it's the how and not the what. And so they typically will get a better response from the other person on the receiving end because of how they say their honesty, how it is shared, because it matters. It's more palatable to the ear when we say things in a way that doesn't hurt someone's feelings, especially intentionally. Now, sometimes, as we know, the truth hurts. So it doesn't mean that we shouldn't share it because, sometimes we don't like hearing the truth about ourselves. Let's just be honest, right? And then we come back and we're defensive, but we all have stuff. We all are flawed, broken human beings. And when someone tells us our stuff, sometimes, oh, there's a little sting there. I didn't really want to hear that, but it was necessary for your growth because you knew it, but you didn't do anything about it. And so now someone is confronting you about it. An assertive person will confront you, but assertive person will confront you in a different way than an aggressive person, because an assertive person, like I said, does care about how you feel. I'm going to say, I feel. So let's just say an example. I feel unheard when you're texting, when I'm talking, as opposed to, you never listen to me. Which one sounds better to your ear? You see, when I said you never listened to me, my head was bobbing up and down, right? All the antics that go with it, all the emotion that's packed into that, versus me owning it, as opposed to saying you are doing something to me. I'm owning it and saying, I feel unheard when you're texting, when I'm talking. And so let's just break that down. I'm owning that I feel this way, right? And then I'm sharing with you the behavior. See, I'm attacking the behavior, not the person. The aggressive person will attack the person, again, with the demeaning words and whatnot. Nobody wants to be attacked because I'm turning you off when I hear that loudness, when I hear those words that are trying to tear me down. I'm turning you off. And you all are as well. Who wants to hear that? It's not palatable to the ear. But the assertive person is owning what they feel by saying, I feel. And I feel unheard, right? I'm telling you what is going on with my feelings. I feel unheard. So you're not listening to me in some form of fashion. And then I am attacking, so to speak, but not in a mean way. I'm letting you know the behavior that you're doing that's causing me to feel unheard, and which is the texting while we're talking. So since I spoke to the behavior and not attack the person, the behavior is something that you can change. So now if I say I feel unheard when you're texting while we're talking, that's something that you can do something about. If I just call you all kinds of names, well, I can't do anything about that. That's just your emotionalism. Give me something that I can change to make this better when you're giving me feedback. So now, after I said I feel unheard when you text while we're talking, and then I can go a step further. I'd appreciate in the future if you wouldn't do that. So I appreciated you in advance for doing something that I know you can do, right? Because of course you can not text when we're talking. It's just being intentional about it. So now you know in your mind, oh, Sharon feels unheard when I'm texting when we're talking. So in the future, I need to not do that. Now, just because we say that to someone and we say it in the right way doesn't mean they're necessarily going to do it, because again, this is probably a habit. And so habits die hard. So what happens is the next time the person is texting while we're talking, I remind them again. Remember when we were talking last week, I said I felt unheard. When you text when we're talking, it's happening again. So be mindful. You may have to say it a few times because it's a habit, and it's okay. Right? Because we don't just say something once and just expect someone to do it. We don't do that ourselves. It takes a little while to break a habit. But after you say that about 2 or 3 times, people don't like to be confronted about their behavior, even when it's done in a nice way, the assertive way. So now, Sharon, I have come to you 2 or 3 times to say this. More than likely after that, you're not going to text when we're talking again because you don't want to be confronted about it again. So now that behavior has changed. Problem solved. But I didn't have to berate you, the other person. I didn't have to call you out of your name. I didn't have to demean you. I didn't have to yell. I didn't have to scream, shout. All I said was, I feel unheard when you're texting while we're talking. And I'd appreciate if you wouldn't do that in the future. I attack the behavior and not the person. And that behavior was something that that person could change. That's it. Now you have a strategy to move toward, if you're not already there, becoming an assertive communicator. Now, obviously, easier said than done, because again, however we communicate now, we've been that way probably all of our lives, however long we've been living. But as long as you're living, you can always do something different. You can always start fresh right here and right now and say, I want to become an assertive communicator if you're either passive or aggressive. Now, it does take practice, but you got to start somewhere. So as you start and you continue to practice, every day you're communicating with someone and many people, so you can start practicing right away. And so some other tidbits, if you will, start your sentences with I. It's I think or I feel, right? Sorry, if you hear my fan, I had to turn it on. You know, hot flashes are real. So when you start a sentence off with I, you're owning it. And typically, and I do the same thing, and most people do this, when we say I feel, we make a statement. But a statement is made for I think. So when you're making a statement, say I think, don't say I feel. Because when you say I feel, a feeling word should follow. I feel happy, I feel sad, I feel depressed, I feel lonely, I feel excited. But typically people will say, I feel like that wasn't right, or I feel that you did it. And that's a statement. So let's be mindful. I think should come before a statement. When you say I feel, a feeling word should follow. Right? So we want to use I statements instead of you statements. I statements, I'm owning it. I'm saying this is what I am feeling and has nothing to do with anybody else. Now I'm going to tell you why I'm feeling that way, but I'm not blaming and attacking you. When you start a sentence with you, people feel blamed and attacked, so they automatically come back on the defensive. Right? And we don't want people to feel defensive because we're just having a conversation that hopefully we both leave having grown. Right? Can you imagine if most of our interactions, we've grown from each interaction? If we were to begin to think along the lines of what I'm talking about, it's definitely possible. And it is possible. It is doable if we live on intention and not just haphazardly, whatever comes out of my mouth, it just comes out of my mouth. It is what it is. You know, that's a lot of people's attitude. It is what it is. No, it is what I say it is. And I choose to not be offensive. I choose to be an assertive communicator. I choose to care about your feelings and how I come across and how I say things to you, especially those of us who are believers and say that we represent Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was not an aggressive communicator. So we need to line up with the word of God and show forth him in our communication, in our interactions. So we have to remember that we have to walk what we say we believe. And oftentimes we don't. We give lip service. Yeah, I say I believe that. Well, why isn't your speech and your behavior lining up with what you say you believe? Because people are watching and they're putting that together and say, oh, yeah, she's a Christian, but she lives just like me. So why should I serve her God? She acts just like me. That's not how it should be. They should see something different in me and you if we say we are believers. They should see something different in our speech and in our behavior, how we handle offense, how we handle when people hurt us, because we get hurt and offended just like everybody else. But we should handle it in love, because that's how Jesus did. That's what Jesus did. The example is all in the word. He was encouraging. He edified. He didn't tear down. He built up. He was honest. But there was a way he shared his honesty. So that's a lesson in communication. It's a foundation to all of our relationships. We have to communicate. But there's a way, there's a how. And the thing is, we're not taught how to communicate. We just continue to communicate based on our families of origin. However they communicated, children picked it up. Then as they grew, Then they had their own families, and now I'm communicating just like my family of origin communicated. So if we were a loud family, I'm a loud parent. If we were a soft-spoken family growing up, I'm a soft-spoken parent. And on and on and on, and other examples. But when you're a child, you pretty much don't have a choice in what you say or do. Now, I'm not saying you don't have a choice in whether you're loud, just use loud and soft as an example. But as children, you do what it is that your parents are telling you to do for the most part. But when you are grown, you can make your own decisions. You don't have to carry on those generational patterns. You can make your own decision. You are your own person now. And so those things that didn't work in your childhood, don't carry them over just because, well, that's what mom did to me. That's what dad did to me. Yeah, but did it really work? Did you really like that? Are you scarred from that? Now you're bringing that scar over onto your children, because this is what really happens. Parents scar their children based out of their own scars, because if you have scars, you're going to parent out of those wounds. It can't not happen. A parent with trauma, a parent who has trauma in their history, they're going to parent out of that trauma. Because everything that we do, that trauma is going to come out in, because that's how it works. That's why we need to know this information, so we can put it in perspective and know what triggers us and what do we do when we're triggered, so we don't pass that on to our children. But when we don't learn this, it's automatically going to happen. And then we wonder why our children are behaving in a certain way. Well, how are you parenting them? Children become the way they are out of a family dynamic of which the parents are in control. And oftentimes I have parents who will bring their children to therapy, and not that they say this so much, but basically it's like, fix my child. And in my practice, I don't see the children without seeing the parent. I'm not saying every session. Yes, I will see the child individually, but I let the parents know, you have to come too, because Johnny got that way out of a family dynamic. Johnny can learn all the great and wonderful stuff in my office in therapy and go back to that same home where no one else has changed. Johnny's going to fall back into his old patterns because no one else in the family has changed. Everybody needs to learn something different, and how to communicate and how to build these healthier relationships, not just Johnny. Because again, Johnny didn't get that way in a vacuum. It was learned from the family dynamic, and again, of which the parents are the head. So the parents are doing things that they are probably unaware of, that's causing some of these things to happen in their children. But the child who speaks the loudest, meaning in their behavior, right, who screams the loudest, so to speak, gets into trouble all the time, that one, oh, that child needs to go to therapy. Yes, they do, but so does every other child in that house, and the parents. We all need to be in therapy, right? Because we all have issues. Let's just be real, right? But that one kid is picked out because he screamed the loudest and sent to therapy. That's not how it works. He screamed the loudest because whatever his particular issues are that he did not know how to deal with, and so therefore got into trouble, or just could not handle whatever was going on in the house, and therefore say became depressed or became anxious, whatever the case may be. Okay, now this is something new. Sidebar: something is happening on TikTok. I don't know. I'm sorry. Something came up about something co-host. I don't know. But anyway, so the child got to became that way out of that dynamic. And so the parents need to learn how their parenting has affected that child and the other children in the home. And again, not blaming the parents. It's just a fact. Because parents come with their own traumas and their own baggage that happened in their childhood. It's generational. You can just trace it back. So parents have their own wounds from their own childhood. But the thing is, we can stop that. We can say, you know what, I am grown now, have my own family, I can make my own decisions. This is what went well when I was growing up from my perspective as an adult now. This is some parenting things that my parents did that I thought was really good. And this is what I think I'm going to throw away because it was harmful for me. They may not have known it, and I'm not blaming them for it. It is what it was, because parents do the best that they can with what they know at the time. We're living in a mental health age now. Well, now parents are learning more. But old school parents, they didn't know this. They didn't go to therapy, right? They just had what their parents did, and then they just lived that way too. That's just how it was. But now that we know better, we do better. So now recognize that as an adult, I can do something different. I do not have to do what my parents did. And make a decision to do and to raise your family accordingly. Take the good, take it with you, leave the bad. And you can do that. You can give yourself permission to parent differently than you were parented in whatever ways are better. And again, keep the good stuff. I'm not saying all old school parenting was not good. Absolutely not. There were some great things that old school parents I wish people were still doing today, that our young people need today, right? But take the good, throw out the bad, just like with anything else. And start your own pattern of how you're going to raise your families. And that's how you stop the generational curses. That's how you stop the generational patterns of abuse, right? And for this instance, I'm speaking of emotional abuse, because I dare say most of us, all of us, have some level of emotional abuse from the words that were used toward us as when we were growing up as children, right? And because our parents and other people, who have raised us and just people who we've come in contact with have their own traumas, have their own history, have their own unhealed wounds. And so I'm in relationship with people and they're in relationship with me who have wounds, and those wounds come out in their communication, in their behavior toward me, and the same with me toward them. Our issues are just clashing. That's what's happening. You find a married couple, right? It's not so much he's doing that to make me angry, or she's doing that. She just no, it's our issues clashing, and we just don't know what our issues are and how they're manifesting in this relationship. And I do this all the time in my couples counseling, and they realize it's like, you're right. I'm blaming her for something that's not really her fault. I'm blaming him for something that's really his fault. It's just, this is our issues. We need to learn ourselves. We need to learn our issues and how they manifest themselves in our relationship. And we can do something about that now that we know this triggers me because of that. So when you said that, I heard my childhood, and that's why I snapped at you. It had nothing to do with that mate. The mate didn't even know that that was a trigger. But when we learn ourselves, it's like, oh man, that's right. So now I know what not to say or how to compartmentalize it when someone does say something that could be triggering. Now, so that person may preface and say, I'm about to say something that I know has been a trigger for you in the past. I'm not meaning it in a triggering way, because it could be something simple. It doesn't have to be something so outlandish that, oh, yes, it's a trigger. It could be simple, but it's still a trigger for me. So now I can compartmentalize it. No, okay, she doesn't, or he doesn't mean it as a trigger. Let me put that to the side. Okay. And now they say what they say, and now I'm good because I know where to put that, because now I was anticipating it, and I'm not, I've allowed my brain to understand that what's about to happen is not a danger to me. Because when we have trauma in our history, our brain changes. Our brain changes from the trauma. And so now we have danger responses. Perceived danger doesn't necessarily mean it's real, because it's based on our trauma, right? So the brain is perceiving danger. So therefore, now it's coming back at that person in the way that it's being perceived. And the person's like, I didn't even what's going on here. My brain perceived danger because of my history. So now you said something similar, did something similar. My brain is saying danger when it's not really even danger. It's the trauma speaking. You understand what I'm trying to say? If that's not clear, put not clear in the chat and I'll break it down even further. But trauma is so real, and it comes out in everything that we do with others who we're in relationship with. And when I say relationship, again, it could be coworkers, could be a boss employee, parent, child, spouse, friends, any relationship. It's going to come out in our communication, in our behavior, the subtle things that we do, our defensive posture, our affect, our nonverbal communication, which we wear on our bodies 24/7. Our nonverbal communication is more than 90% of all communication. So that means What a person sees from your face down to your toes, from the top of your head down to your toes, what they see on you is what they're reading. And you're doing it too. We're all doing it to one another. What we see, that's what I believe, because that's where the truth is. I can tell you what I want you to hear. That could be a lie. My body is always going to tell the truth. And that's what people know. So I'm going to give you an obvious example. This is the example that I use all the time because it's so obvious. If you say to me, Sharon, how you doing? And I say to you, I'm fine. What are you going to believe? Are you going to believe that I'm fine because I said I'm fine out of my mouth? Or are you going to believe that there's something going on that's not fine with me because my head was hung low? When I said I'm fine, it was with a sigh, a major sigh, no eye contact. All of that says she's in distress, but she's saying she's fine. So I was dishonest out of my mouth because that's what I wanted you to hear. But my body spoke the truth. And the nonverbal communication comes from our subconscious. So in therapy, this subconscious becomes conscious. In the subconscious is where our issues lie. Our outward behavior is a manifestation of our subconscious. And our body speaks. Our nonverbal communication speaks what's in our subconscious, which is the truth of the matter. In the subconscious, that's the vulnerable place. That's the place where nobody wants to go. No. We're not touching that area. That's why we live on the surface of our relationships, because nobody wants to be vulnerable. You know why? Because I've been hurt before, been there, done that, not doing it. Not doing it at all. I'm not going there. I'm not touching that spot because I don't know if you can handle it, because they back there where the trauma happened, the wounds happened, the hurt happened, they hurt me. Why would I open myself up to be hurt again? That would be foolish. So we live on the surface of our relationships and never trusting that we can go to that vulnerable place and bring up those things that have come to wound us. But when we get into therapy, that's what we do. We bring up those wounds so we can heal. It's the only way to heal, unless God does a miracle, and he can. But he's not doing a miracle for everybody. He works through people like me and heals people through vessels like myself. And so we dig into that subconscious and deal with those emotions attached to that, to in the subconscious, attached to that trauma, to that unhealed wound, to that hurt. And we begin to heal those emotions attached to that hurt, because we're bringing those primary emotions to the surface. And now it's like, oh, I didn't even realize that that's what I was holding. And now that I realize it, because now I brought it out of the subconscious to the conscious, now I can do something about it. Because again, therapy brings the subconscious to the conscious. It brings it to your awareness. Now you can do something about it. You can't do something about what's hidden, because the subconscious is unknown. It's the beauty of therapy. We bring the unknown to awareness. Now we can do something better. Now I can change my speech, change my behavior. And I know what it's attached to. It's attached to when X, Y, and Z happened. And I felt this way. And I've been holding on to that feeling since then. And often it's childhood. And that's why my relationships aren't working, or haven't worked to the fullest. Or that's why I keep dating the same person with a different name. But they're the same type of people. Trauma attracts trauma. Familiar spirits attract. And that's why I'm attracted to that person, because of that wound. It's still attracting that same type of person. And that person who's attracted to that has their own wound as well. And they're attracted to your wound. Trauma attracts trauma. Case in point, not that this is everybody in the situation. So it's just an example. Someone who may have been abused in childhood in the home. The person who was abused winds up dating abusers, because that's what was shown to them. That's how love was shown, that you abuse me. So now I'm attracted subconsciously to abusers. And The person also too who was abused grows up to be an abuser, and they are attracted to those who were abused. Trauma attracting trauma. That's how it works. Now, every person who who was abused does not grow up to be an abuser or to be abused. But I'm just giving you an example. A lot of times, that's what happens. That's what's in a person's history. Often, when you find someone who has been abused, you trace it back, and they've had that experience themselves, whether they're the abuser or the survivor of abuse. So it's so critical on so many levels. I mean, I can go on because this is what I do for a living, that we get into therapy to learn about ourselves. There's so much to our psychological development and our mental and emotional behavioral well-being that we're just unaware of. And why wouldn't we be unless you studied it? Like I wouldn't be aware of it unless I studied it. But let me just tell you this, if when you go to therapy and you learn about yourself, you'll learn about every person, human being, because it's not Sharon psychology, Judy psychology, Sam psychology. It's human psychology. So how trauma works is how trauma works on me, on you, on everyone else. It doesn't have a specific way for me and a specific way for Jane. No, it's how trauma works. Now, maybe have some different nuances. Absolutely. Absolutely. Or maybe I don't have this aspect and she doesn't have that aspect, but trauma is the same. That's why when we diagnose people with all the different types of mental health disorders, the criteria doesn't change because Sue walked into the office versus Sharon. The criteria is the criteria. If you meet the criteria, you have this diagnosis. And so we're meeting the same criteria for every diagnosis. It's the same. So when you go to therapy and learn this about yourself, and you're like, okay, so this is an example. When you see somebody who's frowning all the time, it's an issue there. When you say, she's always angry, what's wrong with her? There's an unresolved issue. Don't judge. She's got stuff going on and she doesn't know how to heal, because it's not natural to be angry all the time. It's not natural to frown all the time. There's an unresolved issue there that person has been carrying around for however long, and it's plaguing them. And therefore it's coming out in their nonverbal communication, how they look on their face, right? What their body is saying. You can see it. You see they have a frown on their face all the time, or they're scowling, they're mean, they're angry. There's an issue, an unresolved issue. So then when they come out of their mouth sideways to you, don't take it personal, because they're coming out of their mouth sideways to other people too, because it's their wound talking. So let's rise above our emotions, especially when you know you haven't done anything and somebody's coming at you sideways. You know you haven't done anything. Just know, issue. Don't feed into it. Don't match the energy. Give them something to walk away with that's going to help them come out of that cycle in that moment, right? Give them an encouraging word. Don't take offense. You haven't done anything. Their issues are talking. Maybe they had a bad morning. They've been triggered all morning because of what? Now they got to come to work. We don't turn it off because we walk in the workplace door. It follows us into the workplace. That's why we have mean, evil people in the workplace. They were mean and evil at home, and they don't turn it off when they come to the door, because we carry ourselves and our issues everywhere we go. So try not to match energy with energy. Give them something to walk away with that's going to hopefully have the rest of the interactions, the rest of the day be better because of something you said that they weren't even expecting, because they say spewed venom at you, but you recognized it for what it was. And you didn't feed into it. It's like, you know what? Is everything okay? Would you like to talk? It seems like you might be having a bad morning. And been there, done that. I understand. Would you like to talk? Can I get you some tea? Anything to diffuse the situation. But if you match energy with the energy that person is giving, You are keeping them in the trauma cycle. Not that it's your responsibility to get them out of the trauma cycle, but I'm just saying, you're keeping them in the trauma cycle. And now you're adding fuel to the fire that was already lit. And so now, boom, it's escalating. Now you are finding yourself in a tornado with this person, and you haven't even done anything. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. And now you're in this because you match the energy, because you allowed your emotions to be sucked in to something that you had nothing to do with. That's why we have to live intentionally. Because these things that I'm saying, I'm sure you can just have a flashback over your today. They're happening all the time. People are coming at us sideways, coming at us, trying to hurt us, coming at us with defenses. I see the tactics of the enemy. I'm not feeding into that. I'm going to give you God instead of my flesh. Because if I give you my flesh, we might be fighting. I'm not doing it. I'm rising above that. I'm rising above my soulish realm where my flesh dwells, and I'm tapping into my spirit. I'm tapping into Holy Spirit to rise above those emotions that will say, match the energy. Because you got it in it. You got it in you. And actually you got it in you better than she does. I could tear her to pieces. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be that person. So remember, rise above the fray. You have it in you to do that. And if you're one of the people who is the one who is spewing the venom, there's help for you. You can seek counseling. Counseling is one of the best things you could ever do for your life. You will learn so much, again, about yourself, but you will learn about humanity and learn about how issues manifest in relationships, and your relationships will be better because you'll understand that other person without even knowing what their issues are, because you'll be able to understand how to read it because you're reading it on yourself, because you've learned how to do that in therapy. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a therapist. I'm saying that because it's wisdom. Every person living and breathing needs a therapist as well. I have a therapist. We all need to be in therapy. We need a safe space to talk to someone confidentially who does not know us and who can give us wisdom and be objective and non-judgmental. People in our lives are judgmental, speaking to us out of their own emotions and out of their own experience, and that's not helpful for me. I need someone who has learned in the psychology of humanity, and preferably someone who's walking with the Lord and hears from Holy Spirit. That's the best combination, especially for the believer. So let's see if we have any comments, questions. Okay, I see people on TikTok and it just says join. No questions. I can't see any questions. I don't know. Am I supposed to scroll? No. Okay. So again, TikTok. I'm new to TikTok. This is my first week going live on TikTok. So bear with me. And the writing is really small, so I got to squint to see it. On Facebook and YouTube, Netta says, why do people tell so many lies when they do not know what's going on? People who are supposed to be Christians tell lies on the church, the pastor, and everybody else. Then other people. Okay, let's try to decipher what she means here. Then other people in your family and your friends who just lie for no reason. So maybe, okay, then there's other people in your family and your friends who just lie for no reason. I don't get it. Okay, so Netta, people act out of their own issues. So if someone's lying on people at church and lying on family members, there's a wound that they have in their past, whatever it is, probably started in childhood, like most things, right? And because that wound is unhealed, you ever heard of the phrase hurt people, right? When people are hurt and they haven't healed their wounds and they don't know what to do with them, they just know they feel, right? A lot of times people just know they're feeling something, but they haven't connected it to an issue. Because again, a lot of times therapy helps to connect our behavior and our emotions and our thoughts to our issues. If you don't go to therapy, you're not making those connections. I'm not saying I'm behaving this way because when I was 5, da 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 da. People aren't doing that. They don't know those connections typically. So when you find people who are lying, and so therefore they are trying to hurt someone else with their lies, they have unhealed wounds, and they're behaving out of those unhealed wounds. Unfortunately, that's how it works. So it may have nothing to do with, say, Anetta's example is the pastor or other people at church or the friend or family member. It has nothing to do with them, just like the example I gave earlier in the workplace. It has nothing to do with you, the person who's spewing the venom. So in Anetta's case, the person who's lying, it's their unhealed wound that's coming out. And now I'm going to hurt you because I'm hurt. Right. And so and sometimes there's jealousy issues that stem from way back. So if I'm jealous of you, I'm going to do things to hurt you. I'm going to say, I'm going to lie on you. I'm going to turn people against you because that's my wound of jealousy. For whatever reason that I might be jealous. And typically it's like jealousy is a whole beast in and of itself. It's like, well, to be jealous of what? I'm just living my life like you're living your life. You can have what you choose to have, like I choose to have, what I choose to have. Jealousy is demonic. But anyway, if we're operating out of jealousy, and then I'm going to try and hurt you in some type of way to turn people against you or to lie and get people to think certain things about you because I'm walking in that spirit of jealousy. Jealousy is very insidious. But then also, say, Netta, it's from an unhealed wound. When people are just lying and for no reason, and I'm saying this about this person, saying I'm hurt myself and I haven't gone someplace to get healing for whatever my childhood or adulthood wounds are, that's continuing to manifest itself in my adult life. And just because we see someone who's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, doesn't matter what age. That's a chronological age. That's the number of years we've been living on this earth. But our emotional age, that's the true age. So you say, why is she acting like a teenager? Why is she acting like a kid? Because that's when her growth was stunted, because that's when the trauma happened. That's when the addiction happened. I might be 40, but I'm emotionally 15. I'm emotionally 8, because that's when my growth was stunted. You ever heard of the term arrested development? That's when my development was arrested, where it stopped. Now, not that it didn't, grow some, but it stopped and didn't grow as completely and as fully as someone who didn't experience the trauma or the addiction, which is a manifestation of a mental health issue, because addiction is a symptom of a bigger issue. I just chose to use, not that I thought I was going to say turn out to be an addict or an alcoholic, but I chose to use a substance to self-medicate, to self-soothe. And then one day I woke up and I was addicted. But because of the pain I was feeling from whatever was going on in my household, I turned to alcohol. And it's maybe been drinking with friends, smoking weed with friends, doing whatever with friends. It's like, oh, wow, this feels pretty good. Taking the, making me not think about my troubles and what's going on back at home. I could just kind of relax. And that one day of relaxing and feeling good and taking the edge off turns into the next day, turns into the next day, and turns into an addiction. It wasn't planned. It's just that I was taking the edge off, and that, and that worked. That substance worked. But that's the insidiousness of addiction. It lures you in unwittingly, and now you wake up and you have an addiction. So now I have the addiction plus the original issue that I used the substance for to self-medicate from, to self-soothe. Now I have an addiction on top of that issue, because it never solved that issue, because it doesn't. A substance will not solve the original issue. It compounds it. And I'm using a substance, alcohol or drugs. We self-soothe with other things in unhealthy ways. We self-soothe with food. We self-soothe with people. We self-soothe with what we call retail therapy, shopping. There's so many things that we do to self-soothe that aren't healthy. We use people in unhealthy ways to self-soothe. We use sex to self-soothe. Emotional eating, because I'm depressed, because I'm anxious, because I've got trauma. So I'm eating and I'm gaining weight. Or I'm shunning food and I'm losing some drastic amounts of weight. Emotional overeating, emotional undereating, attached to my issues, attached to my trauma. Everybody who's overweight is not just because they eat too much. They might eat too much, but the reason why they eat too much, maybe because of the trauma, because of the unhealed wounds, and they chose food to soothe versus choosing alcohol, versus choosing drugs, versus choosing a person. They chose ice cream. They chose potato chips. They chose fast food, comfort foods, typically. Happens all the time. That's why we shouldn't judge people, because we don't know their story. We just see the outward appearance, the outward behavior. But everybody's got a story. You have a story. I have a story. I shouldn't judge you for your story. You shouldn't judge me for my story. We all have one. We're all broken, flawed human beings, and we will be that way till the day we die. That will never change. But what I can try to do is be better today than yesterday and be better tomorrow than today by trying, by doing something different. Let me get some self-help books on anxiety to help myself with this anxiety I think I've been experiencing. Let me call a therapist and get into therapy to help with this depression. I don't want to feel like this anymore. This grief for the passing of a loved one, these unhealed wounds of trauma I've carried too long, and it's been interfering with my life for however long I've been living, 40 years old, 50 years old. Say, as long as you have breath in your body, you can go to therapy. And now it's so easy. You can go right in the comfort of your own home on a screen. There is no reason that we should not be able to get into therapy today. Insurance can be used for therapy. Some places take people who are indigent, whether you have no insurance, no money. Services are out there. All you have to do is Google it. So let's get on the journey of healing, doing some self-reflection about our issues. And we may not even know all of our issues, but what we want to do is, I want to be better today than yesterday and better tomorrow than today. So you know what? I'm going to get myself some help, and I'm going to do it today because tomorrow's not promised. I'm going to do it right now so I can, the rest of my life can be the best of my life. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a decision to help myself today. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today on the first live episode of Office Hours with Sharon. It's been wonderful. And I hope to see you next Thursday for another live episode of Office Hours with Sharon at 8 p.m. Join me tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for Good Morning God, where all we do is pray. We come on, say a few words, and then I lead us in prayer. And also to those who may watch who have not received the salvation of Jesus Christ, I lead them in a salvation prayer. So join me tomorrow at 8 a.m. for Good Morning God on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And next Wednesday, 8 p.m. for Faith Walk, and next Thursday, 8 p.m. for Office Hours with Sharon, and Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. for Good Morning God, all live. So join me there. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And if you watch on the replay, please put your questions in the comments. I do go back and answer them, or I'll answer them on the next show. If you want to email me questions for Office Hours with Sharon, or you have a prayer request, fulllifecommunications@gmail.com, fulllifecommunications@gmail.com. Full Life Communications is the platform that you're watching all of my live shows on. Thank you so very much. I love you. God bless you, my social media family. Shalom.